My name is Daryl, and many years ago, I worked the night shift at a hotel in Myrtle Beach, SC. During the busy season, it wasn't too bad because we mostly had families staying with us. We also had security on site, so I felt safe. However, the winter months were different. Our cheap weekly rates attracted a lot of strange and creepy people. And at the time, the hotel was nearly empty, and the halls were quiet and dark. I often felt uneasy during my shifts because of the unusual guests who stayed with us. The idea was to make money in the off-season by renting to snowbirds, older retired people who came to the beach for a month or more during the winter. But it didn't always work out that way. The cheap rates made it possible for some not-so-nice people to become long-term guests. Instead of just older, friendly retirees, we also got some people who caused trouble and made other guests uncomfortable. They would stay for weeks or even months, and dealing with them was really challenging. I've found more than my fair share of meth labs, broken up fights, and dealt with other problems during the winter months. Working the night shift, I met some interesting people. Because of the cold weather, some homeless people would come in to get warm and have a cup of free coffee. I wasn't supposed to let them, but I couldn't just turn them away. So I would let them grab a coffee and get warm for a bit, as long as they didn't cause trouble. Working the night shift in the winter led to some crazy and sometimes creepy stories. I have many stories, but this one stands out because it didn't end well for me. The night had been great up to this point. I went to an indie wrestling show with my best friend before work. I had agreed to come in an hour early the next night, so the young lady on the second shift could work an hour late for me that night, allowing me to enjoy the show. The wrestling event was exciting, and I even got to meet Terry Funk, a wrestling legend known for his hardcore and bloody matches. It was a thrill to see him in person. Little did I know, I was about to experience real violence myself later that night at work. I was supposed to start at midnight because she worked an extra hour for me. I usually started at 11 p.m. I counted the register and she told me what happened during her shift, like usual. As she was leaving, my friend, who I'll call Andrew, pulled up. He worked second shift maintenance at this hotel and the other two hotels our company owned. He would often come by after work, bring us food, and then we'd play World of Warcraft on our laptops because the hotel was so quiet. He was just taking my order for food and getting ready to leave. I was excitedly telling him about the fun I had at the wrestling show and showing off my Terry Funk t-shirt, which I was really proud of. I was just about to walk into the back office to put away the shirt when I heard the doorbell ring, meaning a customer had come in. It's true what they say, when the bell rings. It's for you. I turned around when I heard someone speak loudly, but I couldn't understand what they said. Just as I reached the doorway, I saw Andrew suddenly collapse in front of me. Then, out of nowhere, a guy came around the corner and hit me on the head with a short steel pipe he was holding. It made me stagger, and I ended up on one knee. Then, out of nowhere, he hits me in the head with the pipe. I hear the other guy, who I hadn't noticed until that moment, saying he got away and got a cop. They hurried out through the door. Slowly, I managed to get back on my feet, my head throbbing from the blow. I stumbled to the back office, desperate to call the police for help, but the phone there was acting up, adding to my frustration. I slammed it down in a mix of pain and fear. I realized they might come back, so I ran and locked the door. I didn't know where Andrew had gone, and that made me really worried. Around that time, blood started pouring down my head. I called 911 to report the attack and asked for help from a police officer and an ambulance. Then, I called the other hotel we managed to tell Travis, the night manager who was in charge of all three properties. At first, Travis thought I was playing a prank on him because we used to joke around when we got bored, but I managed to convince him I was serious. He said he'd lock up and come down. Just then, the cops and ambulance arrived, so I opened the door for them. That's when I found out what happened to Andrew. After they sucker punched him and knocked him down, he somehow managed to jump over the desk and escape. He ran to flag down a passing cop car for help. I wound up in the hospital emergency room where they had to put 10 staples in my scalp, and they gave me morphine for the pain. After getting treated, I had no way to get home, but the doctor and nurses felt sorry for me and paid for a cab. My plan was to go back to work because it was December and Christmas was coming. I had 3 kids and needed all the hours I could get. When I got back to the hotel, the IT guy, Ted, was there with his wife Barbara, who also worked at the front desk. She was shocked to see me. She thought I would still be in the hospital. I thought I had only been hit in the head once after being punched, but the video Ted was pulling for the police showed a different story. After I went to one knee, the guy hit me not just once, but 10 times in total. I kept trying to grab the pipe and get up for some reason. I don't remember that. I guess I was out on my feet. He kept punching and hitting me with the pipe, until his friend tells him Andrew got away and then got the cops. The 2 of them then run out. I was given a room at the other hotel my company owned because they do not want me to go back to work, and Ted and Barbara gave me a lift there as I was in no condition to drive due to the morphine. They also gave me a paid week off to heal. They switched me over to the other hotel on night shift for a month, just in case they were after me in particular. We never found out why they decided to attack me. The police thought maybe it was a robbery gone wrong, because Andrew got away and I didn't go down easily. Not knowing why really scared me. Even when I came back to work the night shift at our other hotel, I was still nervous. Every time the door chimed, I got tense. But I couldn't afford to quit, because like I said, I had 3 kids to support. About 2 months later, while I was working the second shift, a detective came by. He showed me several pictures of people and asked if any of them looked familiar. I didn't get a good look at them when the attack happened, because it all went by so fast. The video wasn't very clear either. Still, 2 of the pictures seemed familiar to me. I pointed them out, and he asked me how sure I was. I told him honestly, maybe like 85% sure. Then he yelled and asked if I wanted someone to go to jail for attempted murder based on 85% certainty. I was shocked and couldn't say anything. I was the victim. I was attacked for no reason, and he's yelling at me like it's my fault. I was too busy being attacked to get a good look at them. I don't work at a hotel on the night shift anymore, and I'm glad because it's just too dangerous in this area. I want to begin my story by saying I don't believe in ghosts. I grew up in a religious family, and I still believe in those teachings as an adult. According to the Bible, ghosts aren't real. It's fine if you believe otherwise, but it's important for you to know where I'm coming from in this story. But I do believe in spirit, some good and some bad. I'm not sure which one I encountered in this experience, but I think it was one of them. When I was in my last year of high school, I was really upset and angry. I thought I knew more about the world and what's fair than my dad and stepmother. So I left my home about 6 months before finishing high school. I knew some guys who lived in a house about 30 minutes away. This house used to belong to one of the guys' parents, but the bank was taking it back. I don't know all the details, but the bank hadn't finished taking it back, so we all lived there and only had to pay for utilities. It was a big house with 2 floors, 4 bedrooms, and 2.5 bathrooms. Only 3 guys lived there, so there was a spare room. Somehow, I convinced them to let me stay there for just $100 a month, which was a great deal, especially since I only had a part-time job. One of the guys was hardly ever there because he lived with his girlfriend, I think. One guy, let's call him Jimmy, was studying in college and had a full-time job. He'd stay in town sometimes, so he was only at the house about 2 nights a week. The other roommate, let's call him Brad, was also only there 2 or 3 nights a week. I can't remember why. So you can say most of the time, I was myself at the house. One night when I was alone, I turned off the light and lay down on my mattress on the floor. At that time in my life, all I had was a mattress and a shotgun. I was just starting to fall asleep when I heard someone walking downstairs. But I thought it was Jimmy, as he was the only one who came home at that time. There's something else you need to know about the house. All the bedrooms were upstairs, and mine was at the very end of the stairs. The stairs went up halfway, turned, and then went up to the second floor, where there was a hallway, so anyone who went up the stairs would pass by my bedroom door. So I hear what I think is Jimmy walking around downstairs. Then suddenly, I hear them rushing up the stairs really fast, stomping loudly on each step. It was like they were sprinting up the stairs and trying to make a lot of noise. I thought Jimmy was trying to prank me and scare me. So, to play along, I grabbed my shotgun, which was a pump action, and was going to jump into the hallway and make a loud noise by racking it. I didn't have any bullets for it, so it was completely safe. Well, you can imagine how shocked I was when I swung the door open and there was nobody there. No lights were on. Nobody was in the house. I checked every room carefully, but there was nobody there. All the doors were locked and there were no cars outside. I was completely alone, with no explanation for what I had heard. Fast forward about a month, and Brad and Jimmy were at home with me. We were discussing the house and how it seemed like the bank was finally going to take it back, and we would all have to move. I mentioned that I wasn't really sad about it because the house made me feel uneasy. Brad and Jimmy exchanged a glance when I said that. Then Brad asked why I felt that way, so I told them about the stomping on the stairs incident. Once again, they exchanged a look without saying anything. When I asked what was happening, Brad said he had a similar experience just a week or so before. Brad's room was the main bedroom. There was a spot on his floor we called the squeak. We called it that because if you stepped there, the floor would make a loud squeaking noise. It's not unusual for a 2-story house. We all just made sure to avoid that spot when walking around. Anyway, Brad continued to say that he was at home alone, almost falling asleep when he heard someone walking up the stairs to the second floor. He thought it was me coming home. Then his door slowly opened and then closed again. Brad said he sat there in the dark, thinking I was trying to scare him by sneaking into his room. Then he heard the usual squeak from the floor. Finally, he felt his bed move a bit, like it does when someone sits on the side. Thinking he would catch me off guard, he reached out to slap what he thought was me sitting on the side of his bed. But when he slapped, there was nothing there. Brad got up, turned on the light, searched his room, and then the whole house. But there was nobody there. In fact, I was 40 minutes away at that time, staying with a friend. After hearing each other's stories, we all didn't really know what to think about it. Actually, we didn't talk much more about it, because we didn't want to think about what we couldn't understand. Then, the time came for us to leave the house. The electricity was turned off, there was no water, and we had all found new places to live. I had been staying at my new apartment for over a month when Brad called me. He said if I had anything left at the house, I needed to get it within the next couple of days. So, I asked my friend, let's call her Mary, to come with me to the house to pick up a few things. We got there, and I told Mary to wait in the car while I quickly went in. I went straight upstairs to my room, grabbed my stuff, and left. I didn't want to stay there any longer than necessary. When I got back to the car, Mary looked puzzled and asked, "I thought you only had stuff in your room." "I did," I told her. "Then why were you in that room?" she asked, pointing to the office at the other end of the house. "I wasn't," I said. "I went straight to my room and came right back out." Now Mary looked really confused. I never told her about the strange things we experienced in that house, so I knew she wasn't trying to joke with me. "Well, right after you went in, those curtains moved to the side, stayed like that for a minute, and then went back to normal just before you came out. It must have been the air from the AC or a ceiling fan moving them," she said. All I said was, "Yeah, it must have been the wind." But inside, I knew there was no power in the house. No AC, no ceiling fans. There was no logical reason for the curtains to move. I quickly drove away. My roommates and I had a lot of fun in that house. We played pranks, laughed a lot, and made memories that will last a lifetime. but I'm glad I didn't live there for longer than I did. Clearly, we had a roommate of some sort that we knew nothing about.